The White House scrambles to fix Joe Biden's mistakes. We have Twitter supporting fake news while banning conservatives for their facts. And the left says Anne Frank has white privilege. All that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. Folks, it is Monday morning, July 11th, and I hope that you had a lovely weekend. I hope your Monday morning starting off better than the way Joe Biden's week ended last week with him fighting with his teleprompter. And that segues us perfectly into our lead story with Joe Biden's White House team trying to fix and stealth edit what he said. No, I'm not kidding. Things are that bad in the White House where literally they can't chauffeur out jean-pierre to try and put on a Band-Aid for what Joe Biden did because it's literally on camera. Every conservative and Republican posted on social media last week and over the weekend, just showing on full display Joe Biden's incoherence and him fighting with his teleprompter, which happens on a weekly basis. But the fact that now it's consistent and the fact that he's consistently making gaffes is only making the issues worse. So without further ado, we do have the clip here, and then we're going to talk about how they stealth edit this stuff and how basically his administration scrambling on all levels. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line.
Jeez.
Women are not without electoral and or political or maybe precise, not and or political power. That's another way of saying that you, the women of America, can determine the outcome of this issue. I don't think the court, or for that matter, the Republicans.
Wow. What do you just think is going on in Kamala's mind at that moment that she lost to this guy? She's also standing behind a guy that she called racist. And then you got this other dude on the right-hand side that's just smirking. Just, they could both see the teleprompter in real time. They know what he did. That's where we are. Literally, the only way that they could sit there and go around this is trying to stealth edit. And we see this stuff from the Democrats all the time. Normally they do it with history. And they go, oh, well, it's the South. It's not the Democratic South. We don't like that word. It doesn't really go with our narrative. We like to use the word South because when you use Democratic South, it's not really inclusive. So that's the way they do things. It's almost like a buffet, right? The way they treat history and Joe Biden, where they go, well, we don't like that one. That one's icky. I'll take that one. Ooh, I really like that one. Is that the Republican racist? Ooh, I love that one. Let's put that on the plate. Like, that's how they deal with history as well as Joe Biden. They just kind of pick and choose what's good. But now that everybody chauffeured this out and it just went all over the news, it looks terrible. And so they can't edit the video. I mean, they could. That's going to make matters worse. But now they've been ousted all over Twitter for trying to stealth edit what he said. And how they did this was they removed quotes at certain segments of the transcript to make it seem like the president never said it. And I'll actually show you an image here on Twitter from whitehouse.gov actually posted this. So if you look at the end of the quote there in the first paragraph where it says percentage of men who do so, quote, and then it says end of quote, that portion's not in there with quotes itself, even though the president said it. And then the next line, the next paragraph says, let me repeat the line. That's not in quotes either, even though he said it. And then it starts with a quote. But even if you go in the second lines where he's fighting with his teleprompter in real time on camera, they don't have the portions in there in quotes of where he actually fought with his camera. And so this is how they're trying to do things now to try and move things around. They don't have a clue what's going on. There's no Band-Aid to put on this. This is what they have to do now to try and compensate for a president's cognitive decline, his clear cognitive decline. And the left are losing it now. The left don't know what to do. But if you recall, it's not the first time Biden has struggled with his teleprompter or revealed his dependence on careful instructions for his handlers. I mean, they gave him a note card just the other week that told him to take your seat. They told him where to sit. I was so shocked they didn't say your name is Joe Biden. You're the president of the United States. You know things are bad when you have that kind of instructions on a note card that you need to waste paper for a bunch of leftists that want to claim that they're all freaking climate changers and all this other crap. But yet they're going to waste paper to tell a president to take your seat. Like, he has freaking answers written on him left and right. I get that you need a note card sometimes to keep track of all the media and everything that's changing in the world. I mean, Reagan had note cards left and right. Reagan always had note cards. Granted, he can freaking memorize a script. He didn't necessarily need them, but he did always have them. Now, also in April, if you recall, a handler literally dressed as an Easter bunny to steer Biden away from delivering off-the-cuff comments and remarks to freaking the media and press about Afghanistan and Pakistan. So this is happening all the time. The amount of people that he has around him to kind of show for him and herd him like a sheep is just crazy. There's always that clip I talk about where literally the Secret Service is herding him like a freaking piece of cattle to try and get into the Oval Office. They literally point to him. They tell him, hey, it's this way. And he just keeps going straight, like through the grass. There is a walkway to get into the Oval Office where he's been going since Obama's time. And now since he's president for the last, 12 months, I think by the time that filming was. And he just goes straight around some bushes. And the Secret Service had to run to try and then herd him around the bushes to try and make sure he gets to his place. It's crazy. And finally, the left is starting to take note of it. And not just the left, but specifically the media outlets are trying to basically change the narrative here about not his cognitive decline, but about his age. At least they're making some issue here about Joe Biden kind of going downhill. And I think this is the first step of the media saying, hey, yeah, there's a cognitive decline. So the New York Times ran a story and it published a piece basically questioning his fitness. And I mean, this is long overdue. We've been questioning his fitness since he was campaigning. Hell, we were questioning his fitness before he was even campaigning. We were talking about the dude just doesn't look good. Look at his interviews. This guy's thinking about running for president. He slurs. He fumbles through his words. He fights with himself. It's just crazy. Well, the article was titled, At 79, Biden is Testing the Boundaries of Age and the Presidency. Claimed that the president's upcoming 4-day Middle East trip was originally scheduled to be combined with his recent trip to Europe. Now, listen to what they say here, because this is crazy. However, an anonymous official called it crazy for Biden to go on an unnecessarily taxing for the 79-year-old president. Like, going on a taxing trip to the Middle East and to Europe. This is something that's normal for presidents, but it's taxing on him. He gets sleepy, guys. His ankles hurt. Like, it's so baffling that this is happening. But notice that they're trying to do this whole ageism thing. And they've been doing this. I'm using that term specifically because for the last 12 months, roughly, they've been saying that Republicans and conservatives are a bunch of ageists, that we're against him because of his age. I and myself and others, Republicans, conservatives, if you were to combine us into a group, we don't care about his age. Reagan was old, but Reagan had his shit together. This guy doesn't. So it's not about his age. It has everything to do with about his cognitive decline. You can be in your 80s and be fine. You could be 79. You could be in your late 70s and still be okay. Look at Donald Trump. He's freaking doing rallies every week, talking for hours on end, not fighting with his teleprompter, not saying end of quote, not saying repeat the line. I mean, he uses a teleprompter. Have you ever seen him say that? I haven't. I'm sure maybe it's had to have happened once when you're reading off a teleprompter that many times, but there's people on news stations all the time. You have the left-wing outlets reading teleprompters all the time. I've read a teleprompter on the show before. You're not seeing people slip up. This is more than your age. This has everything to do with you in your mind falling apart. And now your administration's falling apart. Follow along with America. Follow along with the United States and the citizens that live within it, because you're trashing the economy. You're freaking having record inflation. You're allowing freaking MS-13 gang members to pour across the border. You're allowing drug cartel to pour across the border. You're allowing fentanyl to pour across the border, which is leading to mass casualties of Americans. All sort of stuff is taking place from this guy. But yeah, no, it's just his age. His age is tough. Yeah, he gets a little sleepy, guys, by flying on an airplane and going from place to place. Quote, and as Mr. Biden insists, he plans to run for a second term. His age has increasingly become an uncomfortable issue for him, his team, and his party, wrote Peter Baker, the chief White House correspondent for the New York Times. An uncomfortable issue? It's as if they never knew that he was going to hit this type of age before he ran. Like now they're sprawling around. That's why I'm saying it's using his age to, I think, segue into cognitive decline later on. I think they're trying to soften the blow. And going, oh crap, we just voted for a guy that's not all there. People are going to find out, when everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. I mean, hell, literally at the G7 summit, you had Boris Johnson, I believe his last name is, the ex-prime minister, I suppose, of Great Britain. Everybody's laughing at him. Everybody's laughing. So this has been going on for a while, but now they're just aware of it. This is how slow the left are. The article noted the oldest president in American history would be 86 years old at the end of his tenure if he won the 2024 election. It's crazy because they actually think he's going to live that long. Look, I'm not for anybody dying, but the way this guy is going, he has some serious either Alzheimer's or something taking place where I don't know if he's going to be able to feed himself, let alone like breathe himself later on, like actually allow himself to remember to breathe, or he's going to choke on his food or something. I don't know. Something bad's going to happen because the way he's been declining since the campaign till now alone, I mean, you're expecting 7 years from now, 6 or 7 years. I don't know. Democratic strategies told the Times that they do not believe Biden should run for president in 2024. Why not? Why not? He's the most popular president in history. He has 81 million votes. Look in the comment section, folks, on the shorts that I make. The Democrats love this guy. He beat Trump is what they're telling me. Oh, well, he's better than Trump. Why not have, if he's better than Trump, and Trump had a freaking great run, if he's so much better than Trump, why would you not want him to run again? Hell, if everything can go this well right now with a guy that's senile, 79 years old, it's taxing for him to fly on an airplane and go deliver speeches everywhere that's written for him, that he just stands up there like an empty shell and reads off a teleprompter, which clearly is taxing for him as well, as we just saw. Why not allow him to run again? Just put him on a bunch of strings, tie him to a gurney, and chauffeur him out there, and he'll be fine because he's the best president in history, right? According to the left and Democrats. Baker cited a Harvard poll released back in June that found that 64% of U.S. voters say Biden is showing he is too old to be president. Again, it's about him being old. It's about his cognitive decline. You could be freaking 95 for all I care and as sharp as a whistle, sharp as a tool, however you want to freaking phrase it that's going to make sense. It's not about age. It's about your freaking, your head up here. More than a dozen current and former White House senior officials and advisors acknowledge Mr. Biden looks older than just a few years ago. What is his face drooping a little bit? He's not standing up as straight. Oh my God. A political liability that cannot be solved by traditional White House strategies like staff shakeups or new communication plans. Interesting. You see in the New York Times how they do this? If you recall, Peter Doocy last week was basically questioning Jean-Pierre on what's going on with the communications director. Why is she leaving? And then not Jean-Pierre, she went on about this whole like thing of, oh, well, let me speak about her. She's so nice. She's so lovely. And a lot of you commented on that video saying it's sad that she has to sit there and look at a note card to talk about her friend. All the nice things about her friend. She's not her friend. But supposedly, folks, Jean-Pierre's known her since 2007. The point I'm trying to make is communications isn't going to fix this thing. They're clearly trying to stealth edit things. There's shakeups in the administration, even though they have the best, the best tenure or the best turnover rate since Reagan days, according to Jean-Pierre. All that stuff's not going to fix a president that you can't even have go on the podium to do his own White House press briefings because you're too scared that he's going to just pass out, slur through his sentences, trigger to a bunch of pressure. Like, what the hell? We just did a whole short the other day of him just fumbling through his words, falling off a bicycle, hitting a golf ball backwards, falling up a flight of stairs, eating his ice cream awkwardly. The list goes on. Somebody literally commented on why I didn't post a certain phrase that he said. I told her, I was like, we literally only have a minute. There's literally hours of content that we could post on Joe Biden's gaffes. I literally only have 60 seconds to post what I thought was good, maybe top 10. It's tough to fit everybody in there, especially everything that everybody wants. So they added the president's energy level, while impressive for a man of his age, is not what it was. And some aides quietly watch out for him. Yeah, we know. It's not just his age. It's his own wife. His own wife watches out for him. Remember, there's that scene of him like in a restaurant, and somehow he made it to where the general public was. And I don't know where the Secret Service was at on this, but his wife comes and like finds him because he's lost, and she chauffeurs him away, and everybody just kind of awkwardly giggles. Yeah, so it's literally everybody's watching out for this guy, and he's still and we still get gaffes like this. You have the most powerful man on the face of the planet that has the best aides, the best Secret Service, the best military, all these things to cover for him, right? Can hire anybody that he wants, practically, that can sit there and cover for him, and it's still seeping through the cracks. So if it's this bad in front of the camera, can you imagine on what is going on inside the White House with this guy? I mean, when somebody says that he does doo-doo his pants, I guess we could say it, it's not far off from probably being true. And it's a very sad thing to say. Look, this man has served this country for over 40 years, and I'm not saying in a good way, but he did serve. And it's sad to see because he has a family, folks. He has a family. Even if we don't agree with who his family members are, like Hunter Biden, he still has people that care about him. There's a lot of Democrats that clearly still love him. And I mean this in all sincerity. You don't want to see somebody go through something like this. I honest to God mean that. It is tough to watch a human being being pushed out there by the Democrat Party because they don't have anybody else. Literally nobody else. And so he took one for the team. He's clearly, man, going through some tough times. And now you have the New York Times, you have other people in terms of outlets finally going, oh crap, this is really bad. Things have gotten really bad. He just fell off his bicycle. Now he's slurring through his words and he's trying to fight with his teleprompter. Uh-oh. He often shuffles when he walks. I've been freaking talking about this for literally 18 months. Yes. Watch when he walks to freaking Marine One. He's like the lawnmower cutting through blades of grass with his feet. He's not lifting them up. And aides worry he will trip on a wire. Trip on a freaking rock, on a pebble. Make sure you're cleaning the driveway every week too. Aides revealed to the Times he stumbles over his words during public events. It's like I wrote this. It's literally like I wrote this. And they hold their breath to see if he makes it to the end without a gaffe. Don't we all? Don't we all? Look, it's not just his aides. It's not just the people at the White House. It's not just Kamala Harris standing behind him. It's everybody going, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen with this guy? Quote, Mr. Biden's public appearances have fueled that perception. His speeches can be flat and listless. Basically, flat as if there's no energy. I've commented this on the entire time. I'm here. They woke me up. I made it. No, seriously. I made it. They breathed through my nose and it gave me life. And he comes up with some cockamamie story that never happened. He sometimes loses his train of thought, has trouble summoning names, or appears momentarily confused, the Times article conceded. They must be frequent viewers of Bald Bradshaw or some conservatives outlet because hell, we've been talking about this since the campaign. Almost exact quotes I would like to point out. Quote, more than once, he was promoted Vice President Kamala Harris, calling her President Harris. Mr. Biden, who overcame a childhood stutter, stumbles over words like kleptocracy. I remember that. That was so bad. He has said Iranian when he meant Ukrainian, and several times called Senator Mark Warner, Democrat of Virginia, John confusing with his late Republican senator of that name from Virginia. And it just goes on. I mean, the article just rips him to shreds. And look, I'm not so much bothered by him, and it's not a good look, but I'm not so much bothered by him saying Iranian instead of Ukrainian or vice versa. There's been times, I know that all of us have probably done this, where we've been in like a really frequent conversation about something, or even for myself, when I know there's a new article or a new news segment coming up in the show, that's where my mind's automatically going. And so because that's where your mind is at as well, trying to think about something else, or you just got done talking about something else, that you slip up on your words because you're referencing something that you just did or somewhere where you're going in terms of conversation. So I'm not so worried about that. It's the fact that it's constant and it's happening all the time. And I would say like one of the ways you do this in Hollywood, if you're filming TV shows or movies or doing something like this on YouTube, is if you find yourself consistently slipping up, whether it's reading a teleprompter, an article, or your train of thought, something that is good advice in terms of how actors are trained is to slow your speech. The problem is Joe Biden can't do that. He's already slow, which is why he looks lifeless on camera. I'm here, tripping over pressure, kleptocracy. Like, it's just, he's already slowing down. There's nothing you can do for the guy. It's past help. It's just get him off the stage and don't put him in front of the public. And now you're seeing why they didn't put him out there during the campaign trail. That's why he hid in his basement. We've been all calling it out. And now they're running these types of articles. These types of articles should have been ran, if anything, during the campaign, not 18 months into his presidency as he's driving freaking the economy into the ground. Some say it is going up. Okay, it's wish-washy. But in terms of inflation, immigration, his handling with Afghanistan, his handling with Iran, his handling with Ukraine, his handling with Russia, his handling with North Korea. I mean, the list goes on in his foreign policy, and now he can't even go around to the Middle East, or they don't want him to because it's too taxing on him. Give me a break. But now they're going to run the article. Now is a good time to do all this. So what also is funny here is they got a little bit of data. They said that Biden has only held 16 news conferences, less than half as many as former presidents Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George W. Bush. Biden has only given 38 interviews, far fewer than the 116 by Trump, 198 by Obama, and 71 by Bush. Like, he's not even in the ballpark. He's not even playing the same game and hasn't been playing the same game. But that's who they chauffeured out. That's who the Democrats are trying to chauffeur out again. They're literally, it's like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They're trying to hold on that this guy's going to make it somehow to mid to late 80s. And they'll do it. That's the thing. Based on what I've been reading from Democrats, they're going to vote for this guy again, and they want this guy. They can't put Hillary Clinton out there, or Kamala Harris, or Pete Buttigieg. They know they're not going to win against Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. They wouldn't win against Ted Cruz, and that's not a jab on Ted Cruz. I love Ted Cruz, but these guys have nothing. They have nothing. The left are now chauffeuring out all this stuff about Joe Biden's age, about how his aides are worried about him. Excuse me, and they're going to cover for him. And speaking of covering for their own, I want to move into our next story here, where you have these Democrats and leftists, and I lump them together sometimes, like I am now, because their actions are the same. And so what happened here is that Democrats were cheering gleefully about Justice Brett Kavanaugh being harassed while eating dinner. And then what you also had on top of this was the whole abortion issue taking effect, because obviously you had Brett Kavanaugh vote in favor of getting rid of Roe v. Wade. So AOC gets fact checked on a claim that was clearly false, but she got to stay on Twitter. And you're going to see this with Stephen King as well. We got a whole thing here with Twitter on being freaking hypocrites and allowing leftists, full-on socialist, quasi-Marxists like AOC, say what they want to say, which was verifiably false. But at the same time, you're going to get rid of Jordan B. Peterson and Dave Rubin for saying something that's factually true. It's unbelievable. So the Supreme Court Justice, Brett Kavanaugh, was forced to bolt from a dinner in Washington, D.C. restaurant on Wednesday. If you recall, this is very reminiscent of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I think she was at the Red Inn or Red Barn Inn or something like that. That place, I believe, went out of business for what they did. But she was ran out. You had Ted Cruz that was ran out of restaurants. A whole bunch of conservatives over Trump's time and there a little after were ran out of restaurants as well. But now Brett Kavanaugh had to bolt out of dinner because you had these people intimidating him. So leftist protesters discovered that he was eating at Morton's Steakhouse. What a man. Eating steak, you know what I mean? Living the good life. And disrupted the entire restaurant to unduly harass the Supreme Court justice over his decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Morton's Steakhouse called the incident an act of selfishness and a void of decency. I mean, I get that you got to at least put out some statement because people are requesting what happened at your institution, but I think you could have been a little bit more harsh on people. However, Democrats have gleefully cheered on targeted harassment of a Supreme Court justice. It ends there. They've been doing this for a while, right? I mean, they've been out there in front of his property, in front of other justices' property, doing what they're doing. And this was back when Jen Psaki was the White House press secretary, and she was asked very clearly about from Peter Doocy on what she thought about all this, and she wouldn't answer. She was all for it. She answered the question, but she was kind of dancing around that she was for it, and basically said we're for peaceful protest and that they were okay with people being out front of the justice's house as long as they didn't intimidate them. What would you call that? A bunch of people screaming and yelling at you and your kids. I mean, that sounds like a little bit of intimidation to me. What else would you be protesting? You want to create some sort of intimidation. You want to voice your narrative, your viewpoint in some way, and you're trying to do it and clearly dissuade the guy and scare him. And now these actions follow suit, which kind of proves our point. So AOC, the lovely Democrat from New York who somehow gets voted in, I try to wrap my head around. There's people exist that voting these knuckleheads in. It goes to the same thing with Republicans, right? You look and there's some Republicans out there. I mean, they're a dime a dozen, but you're like, how the hell did you get in office? Like, get out of here. So at least we band together and we look at our own going, holy crap, maybe you shouldn't be in office. I'm not a fan. Oh, you said something stupid. That's real bad. But AOC gets to trot out and say stupid stuff, and her own people don't eat her. But it has to be the right that comes out and says, hey, what you said was stupid. So this tweet was shared from the Huffington Post senior editor Andy Campbell, slamming Politico for clutching pearls from writing up a 212-word account of the harassment of Justice Kavanaugh near the end of the playbook Future. This is what the quote says from Politico. It says, while the court had no official comment on Kavanaugh's behalf, and a person familiar with the situation said he did not hear or see the protesters and ate a full meal but left before dessert. Mortons was outraged about the incident. Yeah, I would be too. So AOC took to Twitter. She said, quote, "Poor guy. He left before his souffle because he decided half the country should risk death if they have an ectopic pregnancy within the wrong state lines. It's only very unfair to him. The least they could do is let him eat his cake." Like, what a stupid tweet. Quote, "I will never understand the pearl clutching over these protests. Republicans send people to protest me all the time," which we're not for, by the way. We're not for that. "Sometimes drunk and belligerent. Nobody cares about it unless it's a Republican in a restaurant. Can someone please explain the obsession, because I don't get it?" I want to be clear, at least, and this is anecdotal, but I mean, a lot of Republicans that I know and conservatives, we're not for people going and harassing other people, anybody in restaurants. And I'm sorry that does happen to you. I don't like AOC. I don't agree with what she says. She's a pretty woman, but she is crazy. This woman, like I said, is freaking like Marxist, quasi-fascist, like mixed with some freaking all sorts of crap. We're not going to get into it. But I mean, needless to say, I'm not a fan of her. I don't support people going and harassing her in any way, whether that's, calling her names out there in public, harassing her and her family members. I'm just not for any of that. So she writes that tweet and completely gets away with it. And she said some crazy stuff in there, as you heard. So the National Review came out and fact-checked the Democratic Socialist and know that AOC was spreading misinformation in her post regarding the pregnancy issue, which occur when a fertilized egg implants and grows outside the main cavity of the uterus. In other words, it's not going to be able to survive, and it can actually be fatal to the mother. And I believe I'm saying that right? Ectopic pregnancies, and hopefully I'm not sounding like Joe Biden here and trying to just read straight words. But she spreads this misinformation, and nothing happens. Nothing happens to her. Quote, "While AOC seemed to smile upon the demonstration, her reason for supporting such action is fictitious," the outlet stated. "The treatment of ectopic pregnancies, which occur when an embryo implants itself outside the uterus, oftentimes on the fallopian tube, remains legal in all 50 states. Embryos that implant outside of the uterus, are not viable, and even the most stringent of pro-life groups support the immediate treatment of them as a medically necessary act, not an abortion." But this is what they do. They spread these lies and they get away with it. I mean, can you imagine if anybody, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Ted Cruz, pick any mainstream conservative. You don't even need to pick a conservative Republican. Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson aren't Republican, aren't conservative. They're more like middle. Hell, dude, Joe Rogan too, would all be banned off of Twitter in less than 24 hours for saying such a thing. But she's just roams free. Washington Examiner writer Jerry Dunleavy added, "Not only is medical treatment for an ectopic pregnancy not illegal anywhere in America, but implying to your 13 million followers that it is illegal is the sort of thing that could actually cause someone to risk death for no reason rather than to seek out treatment that they may need." So by saying and spreading this false information, you have people going, "Well, it's illegal. I'm not going to go get this done. I better figure it out." And then you're going to die because you never sought out a treatment that was legal in the first place because you're an idiot that constantly posts stuff that is knucklehead things. If you're going to post knucklehead things and you find yourself doing so consistently, it's time to get off social media. Okay? It's time to get off social media. Now, somebody might say, "Well, Brad, you've said knucklehead things time and time again." Yes, but I've been vocal since day one why I do this show. Yes, I love to talk about the news. I love to have fun. I love politics. I literally think it's comedic. I'm on the same suit where Michael Knowles is at. It's hilarious on what people say and do. But I also do the show because it's an opportunity for me to at least document what I say, look back on it, and be able to evaluate my thoughts and see if my train of thought's linear, if it makes sense. And that's how I can fix myself and become a better person. So there's many reasons why I do it, but I don't post on Twitter and social media aspects other than YouTube that much. So if anybody follows me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, I do post things on there, but it's very rare. And when I do post on it, normally it's a reaction to something. I'm not telling people in the same manner of what AOC is doing in terms of posting fake news or something idiotic all the time. So in February 2019, we have to go back a couple years, AOC spouted, quote, "Tonight, a dude was creepily and obviously taking a picture of me while pretending he wasn't, and I had to break his imaginary fourth wall and say, 'Hi, I'm a person. This is weird.' Well, welcome to public life. There is a lot of weird people out there." And I'm not sure why she's assuming it's a conservative. Maybe she found this guy on social media or something. I'm not sure. But it's a guy from Chris Jackson saying, "Conservatives out here taking pictures of AOC having dinner and walking down the hallway. They are so obsessed." She has this thing where she thinks people and conservatives and Republicans just like want her. Like we are sexually into her, that we would love to date her as a person, which is so far from the truth. She was telling Ben Shapiro to stop catcalling her when he was just telling her if she wants to debate, he'll do it. And Ben Shapiro's been vocal that he wouldn't date her, I wouldn't date her, because she's crazy. Okay? There's a lot of people that wouldn't date her, especially a lot of conservatives. So people taking photos of her might be for a post. It could be to sell them on the internet to, news outlets. Who knows why somebody's taking a photo of her, but she's going to go there and be all self-indulgent and say, "Oh, well, you can't have me. Sorry. Don't be taking pictures. I'm a person." Yeah, we know you're a person, lady. A person that we don't like. The Politico Playbook article was also shared on Twitter by Chasten Buttigieg. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that guy's first name right, but it's Pete Buttigieg's husband. And if you don't know who Pete Buttigieg is, if you recall, he's the Secretary of Transportation for the United States. Probably his highest title he'll ever get, but they're going to try and chauffeur him out for president next too if Biden doesn't make it. The spouse of the Biden cabinet member snarkily tweeted, "Sounds like he just wanted some privacy to make his own dining decisions." And kind of just being a little bit facetious in what he says. And then he kind of, is almost a reply to the tweet that you see on the screen to what Daniel Littman said. And it's just doing this whole thing that he doesn't need to be getting into either. And obviously this led to some pushback from conservatives and Republicans. And you had the White House press secretary, our favorite, Karine Jean-Pierre, defending these protesters, targeting a Supreme Court justice eating at a restaurant by saying this is what democracy is. So it never gets old watching her just sit there and support the actions of those on the left and Joe Biden and try to make sense of what he's doing. And she fights through her own thoughts to try and formulate some opinion that is asinine. But here's one of those asinine opinions of her doing what Jen Psaki did, or Psaki, however you want to pronounce it, and supporting these protesters doing what they're doing.
People should be allowed to be able to do that.
In a restaurant.
If it's outside of a restaurant, if it's peaceful, for sure.
Crazy.
Really?
Peaceful protest. Your first question to me was intimidation.
So these justices, because
and violence.
Protesters do not agree with an opinion that they signed on to, have no right to privacy, is what you're saying.
But Peter, this is people have the right to, this is what a democracy is. People have the right
to privacy?
Of course people have a right to privacy, but people also have a right to be able to protest peacefully.
Is that
peacefully? It's the intimidation and the violence that we condemn.
So she can't sit there and kind of put two and two together with the violence and intimidation that you're going after people in restaurants. That's not peacefully protesting. I don't know how you can not see that as intimidation. Again, I wouldn't want that for a Democrat. I wouldn't want that even for a leftist or anybody to be going, after them while they're trying to eat with their family or whoever it may be. It doesn't matter. But the White House is all for it. And she's echoing what Jen Psaki said prior as well. So this isn't anything new. It wasn't a shock to me that she would do this. For some reason, Peter Doocy was acting a little shocked, and maybe it was because that was what the headline would be ran. But furthermore, you have basically people blowing up over this. So Twitter writer Brian Fuller raged, "Reminder, Brett Kavanaugh deserves to dine in terror." So it goes with the whole thing of, yeah, they're trying to intimidate him. You have progressive podcaster Ethan Klein. Oh, God. Quote, "I hope Brett Kavanaugh never has a peaceful meal for the rest of his life. Who gives an F, dude? Just stripped human rights away from 50% of Americans. F yo dinner, bitch," is what he said. What an intellectual. What an intellectual to be talking like that. God, the guy's on like a moral high ground. If you've seen the decline, that somebody should do a documentary. I don't know if it should be Shane Dawson or somebody should do one of their series on Ethan Klein, the fall of Ethan Klein, because he's fallen pretty far. And it's sad that somebody's just all for that, posting that to all his followers, because some idiot out there is going to be, oh, look what you think Clyde said. I'm going to go out there and harass somebody. You have actor Ken Olin blustered, sorry, not sorry. Brett Kavanaugh is a bad person. He's only in the fancy DC steakhouse because his SCOTUS seat was bought and paid for by rich right-wing religious fanatics. So if Americans want to exercise their First Amendment rights to protest outside a restaurant, tough shit. Deal with it. Deal with some crazy knucklehead that you don't even know having the possibility of coming up with you with a firearm or whatever and shooting you dead. Go in there and harass somebody while they're eating. Oh, that's fun. But yet when it's done to them, they'd be freaking out. How about, I'm just going to keep it there. Baseball writer Craig Caltera ranted, F around and find out. Sorry, dude. You want to ruin the lives of millions? Expect people to tell you they hate it. I mean, you could do that in different forms rather than actually going in the restaurant. And you guys, the sadistic stuff from the left that they posted is nuts. I mean, we could do a whole episode here. I'll read a couple more for you, but the list literally keeps on going. Screenwriter Rondi Mayhem Singer tweeted, if Brett Kavanaugh never enjoys a dinner again, as long as he lives, he will still suffer less inconvenience than a child forced to give birth to her rapist baby. I mean, just wrap your head around that one. The inconvenience, right? Inconvenience. So I love how he uses that word in terms of Brett Kavanaugh, that he still suffers less inconvenience, but yet majority of abortions were done because of inconvenience. And I love that he's utilizing a extremely hyper subset outlier of abortions to cater to his, writing of going after Brett Kavanaugh on Twitter, but can't see that type of linear logic between what he's saying and the data of how freaking outlandish. It's amazing. It's amazing that there's the outlandish thinking and thoughts that people are willing to go and espouse. NBC Think writer Noah Berlaxi bemoaned pregnant people literally have no right to their own body and can be tortured for 9 months. Come on. And then killed by the state if it feels like it. Now, if you knew that having sex with the other person would lead to a possibility of being pregnant, or in other words, you being tortured for 9 months, then why do it in the first place? Like if I knew I was going to be tortured or having the high possibility, like say if I went to like a well-known terrorist place in the Middle East somewhere, we'll just put an example, not to call out anything. And it was like, hey man, like there's a good chance that you could be tortured. I'm not going to go. So in the same way of like, you're going to have sex going, well, it's a good chance you're probably going to get pregnant and be tortured for 9 months. You're like, I'm all for it. This sounds great. Let's do it. And it just sounds stupid. So when people write stuff like that, automatically they're an idiot. But hey, they work for NBC and they're a think writer. How would Brett Kavanaugh like it if that happened to him? Forcing someone to carry a child they don't want at a risk of their mental and physical health is torture. It's torture. And it's meant as such. These laws are deliberately sadistic and meant to terrorize women and keep them in their place. Oh gosh. So there you go. I love how the same people that say they don't want men speaking for women is a man speaking for all women. It's just crazy that the amount of freaking hypocrisy that comes out on Twitter, on television, anywhere where these leftists kind of dominate those institutions. So AOC gets to keep her stuff up. Everything's fine with that, even though she got called out. She's not banned or nothing. You also have Stephen King tweeting fake news. But the difference is Stephen King at least acknowledges that it was fake news, where AOC is just okay with posting that type of stuff. So Stephen King tweets about Ron DeSantis and like is automatically debunked for what he said. And thankfully he did delete it and actually said he was sorry. So it must have been frightening for the whole writer Stephen King to apologize for a tweet about Ron DeSantis that turned out to be pure fiction. So not only is he just writing books that are pure fiction, but clearly it's now seeping through to his own thoughts into this Twitter sphere. The far-left novelist told his 6.7 million Twitter followers on July 6th that the popular Florida governor has signed a bill requiring Sunshine State students and professors to register their political views with the state. Now, this is kind of what I've been talking about in terms of emotion and people just getting all pent up and not using their head on the left and sometimes the Democrat Party. And they take to Twitter and they just write the most insane shit. Just think about this for a second, right? Without even going further and say you knew nothing about Ron DeSantis other than the fact that he's a Republican and a conservative. If you heard that somebody signed a bill on the right that was requiring Sunshine State students and professors to register their political views with the state. Just knowing that he's a conservative Republican, does that sound like a viewpoint from a conservative or Republican? It's not even close. We don't want the government to know things about us. We don't want registries for guns. We don't want people to have to do things like that he's espousing here. So even without even knowing who it is, you have to at least sit back and go, man, before I tweet this, I should probably do my research on this. This sounds pretty crazy for a conservative Republican to do. I think Ron DeSantis might be crazy if you're someone on the left. So maybe I should hold off on a moment. But no. He's going to just go ahead and tweet it. So he said, I deleted a tweet about Ron DeSantis requiring notice of political views of students and teachers. That really was fake news. Sorry. So at least he had the wherewithal to go and like think and go, oh man, oops. But you should have had that wherewithal at least a little bit to think about it rather than going post it because you heard something on CNN or you heard something on the Twitter sphere from your other leftists and Hollywood friends that are clearly asinine in terms of politics. So Twitter, which selectively cracks down on anything it deems misinformation, did nothing about the tweet, folks, for several days before King acted. He got away with it. It is so frustrating because conservatives, Republicans, right-wingers, whatever you want to call somebody, gets banned within like hours of them posting something. He gets away scotch-free for days. AOC's stuff is still there. At the recording of this, I don't believe she's deleted it. So when the writer initially apologized, he blamed his source in the statement to none other, folks. You want to just take a guess of the source? Donald Trump talked about them all the time. Hey, fake news. Jim Acosta in the front row, you're sick, Jeb. Look at them. The fakest of them all. CNN. I regret having posted the headline without being more confident the story was correct, said King, who had retweeted the old phony story with the words, I can't even. Salon is usually more reliable. Twitter is a constant learning experience, and I will try to do better. I mean, how about just try to know the conservative perspective or the Republican perspective? We've said this time and time again. We grew up as conservative Republicans. We grew up in a leftist, Democratic-dominated institution called the education system. For literally the majority of our lives at most points, at least at the age of 33 right now, majority of my life was spent in that institution. I work in a leftist-dominated institution called the education system now as a teacher. We were grown up in what your viewpoints were. You espouse your viewpoints all over the internet. We know what it is. The problem is you don't know conservative Republicans' viewpoints. And we've said this time and time again. Case in point, you thought that's what we believed in. I mean, I could read that and go, wow, like I'm surprised that you even would think that we would be into something like that. But because you listen to CNN, because you listen to Salon and all these other places as reliable sources, like Brian Stelter's show, reliable sources, you're going to just post this crap all over the place. Like there's some stories I've sat on for like a week before I got to it because I want to make sure all the evidence was out. And if I were to talk about it, I'll present you the evidence of that specific time and say, hey, I'm going to withhold my opinion on what's taken place and wait for everything to come out, wait for the trial, and then we could really dive in and talk about it. But this is what we have on the news so far. You, as a viewer, can make a judgment if you would like. It's a free country. But I would hope that people in the Bald Brad show would go, hey, I'm going to refrain as well. It seems like pretty good information. We should wait till all the evidence comes out to see if something would change. But the left don't want to do that. They want to go protest. They want to post up on Twitter. That's asinine. I'm not even saying conservatives and Republicans and those on the right don't do the same thing as well. It's just in the masses when it comes to the left and the Democrat Party. The law DeSantis signed, as Salon botched, requires public colleagues and universities in Florida to perform voluntary annual surveys on the subject of intellectual freedom and viewpoint diversity. See, it's so funny. When you get into diversity of when the right wants to talk about it, all of a sudden it's bad, it's icky. That's why I say it's like a buffet. This is good. This fits my narrative. Oh, Republicans fitting my narrative? I don't want that. When did that get in here? Ew. Like, it's just the stuff they post. When we want to do diversity stuff, it's all bad. But they don't want to be inclusive to anything on the right, but they're going to tell you they're all about inclusivity. They're all about diversity, but they don't hire Republicans. They're all about diversity, but they don't want to hire Republicans or conservatives or anybody on the right wing of the aisle at any major institution that's dominated by the left. That's why we're all being ousted out of Hollywood. That's why you got to walk on eggshells in any educational system setting. You can't speak up because they don't want diversity. They want diversity of race and skin color. They don't want diversity of intellectual thought. PolitiFact, the left-wing fact-check site run by Poynter Institute, deemed King's claim misinformation. King claimed DeSantis signed a bill requiring Florida students, professors to register their political views with the state. We rate King's statement as false. But he's going to stay on Twitter. Granted, he deleted it, so even if he was caught, he would get to come back. The point is that it was up for days. And I'm trying to correlate it to all the conservatives. Literally, since we started the show, it's been, 15 months? I believe we started in February of 2021. How many have we gone through that have been banned or suspended? The most recent ones were Jordan B. Peterson, who's not a right-winger. People keep claiming that he is, but he's like, when did that happen? And then you have Dave Rubin, who's not a right-winger either, and he keeps going, well, when did that happen? And they're both banned because they said that a biological woman was basically a biological woman and not a biological man. And it was that actress, and her name slipped in my mind. She's from Juno. But they got banned for it. AOC, anybody on the left, that's fine. That's fine because that's how the left works. That's why Twitter sucks. That's why, honestly, I don't really post on there. It sucks. It's trash. I don't even know if it's something that Elon would have been able to fix. And he realized it was trash too, and that's why he pulled out. It wasn't just because of the numbers and they were lying. I don't know what he was expecting from the left in terms of giving them the numbers. They lie about everything. I mean, case in point, literally saying that it's Joe Biden's age. It's not his cognitive decline. Well, speaking of Twitter, speaking of the left posting asinine things, speaking of the insanity of the left, this is our last news story of the day. Wrap your head around what I'm about to tell you. This is how far they've gone. This is why you don't take them serious. This is why we're not going to take them serious in the next election. One, because they voted for Joe Biden and the way they handled the country in voting for Joe Biden. But they said here on Twitter, and it was trending, that Anne Frank had white privilege. Let that sink in a little bit. I'll say it again. Anne Frank had white privilege. This is what was trending, a trending topic on Twitter from the left. It's so mind-boggling that these people just come out and they post stuff. I've given like a good time to try and think about how possibly can you craft this and morph it and spin it into fitting in your leftist narrative. You just can't. So a topic was trending on Twitter regarding that Anne Frank had white privilege. Yes, that Anne Frank that you all grew up with. The Anne Frank who was forced to go into hiding at the age of 13 because the Nazis were hunting Jews, and she later died in a freaking concentration camp at the age of 15. Yeah, that Anne Frank. Well, on Saturday, one of the top trending topics on Twitter was Anne Frank. The reason? There was a famous diary author was trending was because a leftist claimed that Anne Frank had white privilege. Quote, both of these screenshots were taken today. Anne Frank to save you the click that went viral for people saying that she benefited from white privilege. It's getting harder and harder to say with confidence that Jews have a safe and secure future in this country. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom. So Jews have been targeted time and time again, but for some reason, they're never talked about in this whole thing of, racism or whatever the hell it could be. It's always the right that are all these things. The left can just post whatever they want, not get removed off Twitter and just say asinine things. So the original tweet that ignited this freaking outlandish debate was allegedly started by a certain Twitter user, Kalazuko quote or whatever the hell his name is, or she, her, his, him, nom, I don't know. The user bio reads Marxist humanist and hedonist utilitarian. So that's who this person is. Yeah, Marxist humanist. Okay, that's what they have in their bio. Hedonist utilitarianism. I think I said Hinduist. My bad. Now I really do sound like Joe Biden. The bio also uses anarchist slogans such as "I want to eat the rich" and ACAB. So he's probably one of AOC's followers. All cops are bastards is what ACAB stands for. Quote, hold on. I want to make sure I say this carefully. Yeah, Anne Frank had white privilege. Bad things happen to people with white privilege. Also, but don't tell the whites that, the Twitter user wrote on July 8th, so just a few days ago. The tweet has since been deleted because, as you would imagine, freaking some major backlash happened, but another user added to it, yes, all white people are safe. No one is saying the Nazis didn't target white people, just that white people can hide behind their whiteness, whereas the Nazi USA black people can't. Go tell black people that whites got it hard. Man. I mean, it's literally just a failure of the education system on all fronts. This person wrote, "Babe, wake up. They're calling Anne Frank a colonizer on Twitter again." Claire says, "It's time for our biannual garbage Holocaust take featuring Anne Frank and Jews as white people." It's nuts. And it just went on. I mean, Twitter literally were tearing these leftists apart. Blaze TV personality Steven Crowder, one of the greats, said, "I can't believe there are actually people out there saying that Anne Frank had white privilege. Morons." You had writer Catherine Brodsky. "Somehow a discussion broke out on Twitter today about how Anne Frank, of all people, had white privilege. A girl literally murdered for being Jewish was considered at best by Nazi as an inferior race. How delusional do these identity politics discourse get?" Oh, it will always continue to get worse because they call Ben Shapiro a white supremacist, folks. He's Jewish too. Conservative commentator Matt Walsh, "According to the left's doctrine of white privilege, yes, Anne Frank had it. If that makes the concept of white privilege sound insane, well, right, exactly." Writer Ashton Pittman said, "If you think Anne Frank had white privilege, you don't know what white means. Race isn't real, it's made up. What makes you white is relative to your society's ideas. In Nazi Germany, she wasn't white. The Nazis saw her as part of the Jewish race and murdered her for it. If Anne Frank could have been transported into the 21st century America, we consider her white. But in Nazi Germany, she wasn't white. She was Jewish and considered part of a separate race. That's why anti-Semitism is a form of racism, even though most Jews appear white." The left don't get that, though. It has to fit their narrative. And when it doesn't fit their narrative, then their narrative just disappears in their own mind. But somehow in that cognitive realm, it still exists and it still makes sense to them. Even though everybody on the outside is going, "What the hell are you talking about?" It's a fail of the education system, folks. It's a fail of inculcating certain values, whether it be a parent or an educator. This is what happens when you go into a classroom is teaching communism is good, teaching Marxist thoughts, teaching the Frankfurt School of Idiocracy, all sorts of things. So columnist Eric Garcia said, "A lot of the discourse about Anne Frank and white privilege shows a gross misunderstanding of the history of racism and whiteness has been historically defined. Europe and America's definition of white in the first half of the 20th century is very different from now." Yeah. Folks, if you ask a basic history question to a lot of these people, they don't have a clue on how to answer. Like, not a clue. There's tons of videos out there of conservatives and Republicans going out and asking them, "Hey, when was our country founded? What continent are we on? How many continents are there?" The basic questions that you get in elementary school, they can't answer. Yet a real estate investor, Adam Milstein, Twitter goes full anti-Semitic as tweets about Anne Frank go viral, accusing her of having white privilege. Heartbreaking indeed to see such anti-Semitism in 2022. It's fine from the left, though. What do you mean? The left posted it. They get away with this stuff. Yet singer Clay Aiken, "I think it's time to shut down the internet completely." I mean, I don't really want to hear from Clay Aiken. That guy doesn't really fit my my meter in any sort of morality. Based on what he did to Michael Knowles during one of those Politicon debates, going after him, I don't want to listen to that guy. Novelist Stephen Marsh, "This has to be the low point of our discourse, right? I mean, it can't get stupider than this, right?" No, it can, and it will. And I mean, you guys, the list goes on. It's one of those things where I could just continue to read tweets after tweets after tweets, do a whole video on it. But the left are going to continue to post this stuff. They're going to continue to get away with it. And this is what I mean by revisionist history, is this is the stuff that people are teaching in schools. There might not be across the board where every teacher's teaching it, but they're already doing things like this. They're revising history. They utilize, what is it, Howard Zinn, I believe the historian in air quotes, is that they utilize a lot in schools, which focuses on revisionist history. Go to Barnes and Nobles and look in the history section. The 1619 project's there, okay? Whatever, if that's how they want to label it, but there's some asinine things that are written in the 1619 project. They're just out there and open that it's history. So this is history to the left. This is the stuff that I could see in the next 10 years being in the history books because this is what they want to believe in. They think that this is real, that she was an actual white person. And they morph people into being white so that it can fit their narrative. So that the narrative's been fit, that they can push it now, and now that's how it becomes history. That's how it becomes reality. They do the same way. They sit there and say that a biological male can be a female, and when they force you into their reality and they demand that that person be a female, even though they're a biological male, at that point, that's when it becomes reality to them, not to anybody else, but to them, and that's how they force it upon your kids in the education system once again, and that's how they revise things. That's how they'll revise biology. That's how they'll revise all of human history. This is how they do it. They take over the language, they take over the history, they take over freaking everything, And this is how society just crumbles. And you're even seeing people on the left, the Democrat Party, like Clay Aiken, say as much, going, this is pretty bad. So when you got yourself, the left eating themselves, the Democrat Party eating themselves over the things that they say, you know things have gotten bad. But with that being said, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Bald Brad Show. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you later here on The Bald Brad Show.